Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably the thing I define myself most with is that I'm an artist. It gives me a way to make sense of the world. I have moments, where I'm more like settled down, and being out in nature and all those things kind of brings me closer to something that I think is bigger than defining myself as anyone.
That was one of my questions I had for you, because I know that you do a lot of residencies, so it's like being out of the city, away from like the normal like daily tasks. Is that the core part of your practice, is just like getting away and getting that headspace?
Yeah. I crazy appreciate residencies. Like if I had my way, my life would be like a residency. But so I guess, residencies kind of supply that really dreamy time for me, where I can just get to like focus on art, and it puts me in these kind of dramatic places, and kind of getting out where you see like really great expanses helps me feel more connected with myself. And it also feeds into just like the conversation I have going with my work and what I get inspiration from. And
how do you see like the juxtaposing of like yourself or like other characters, I guess, in one of these landscapes? I feel like a lot of the work that I've seen more in like desert, and even in Iceland too, when you were there, it's like positioning bodies in this like greater landscape.
There's a couple things to it. There is like a necessity that I always kind of have this singular person, because often I'm like by myself or with one other person. But simultaneously, like I am interested in that, because you can really position like one single figure as kind of smaller, right, to like the kind of greater. And I like that relationship, that we are really, in a lot of ways, these specks. I mean, they're often like costumed and masked. And I'm also interested in that kind of like masked reality. It could be anyone under there. It has like a duplicity or a mystery within that, and how just there's this like real ancient kind of thread with humans.
So do these costumes like work towards an idea of ritual or like greater like ceremonial type of things? How do you get inspiration for the actual costumes themselves?
The costumes can come from a lot of different sources, honestly. Like in my video, there's some costumes in there. They were inspired by a photograph by Robert Misrak, and it was a photograph from a protest that happened at Nevada test site. And there were women who went out, and they actually wore these like silver death masks. So that came like directly, right, like really from a source. I was actually researching more about shamans and shamanistic ritual, and also that lineage, particularly coming out of Scandinavia. And I made that costume when I was in Iceland, and I had to really use just what was there, because I was very north, and it's like really hard to get supplies, And I lucked out, and someone had left like all this wool that they had gotten from a sheep farm nearby. So I was able to use all this wool, and I brought silver duct tape. And then I went to the hardware store, and I got plastic. I got a roll of plastic. And so I just like worked with what I had.
I feel like there's always a lot of silver and reflective coloring like in your costumes and everything. Yeah. Like where does that come from? Is that like futuristic or like relatable to like technologies?
Yeah, I think all of the above, and also that I just love shiny things, like kind of like a crow. I like that there is something about that silver quality that brings in, of course, like space travel and sci-fi, and it's kind of like a codex within that. So I like having that relationship. But I also like that it is reflective. So that is something that is just, I find beautiful, but then that also talks to like really interesting things that are more theoretical, like doubling and the mirror self. I just went crazy at the reuse center, at Bring. I found like all of these old fire bags. I mean, so they're huge. They're beautiful. They're like so shiny, and the material is sculptural. It holds its form.
I've been doing a couple studio visits recently, and there's always this difference between like video artists and object-based artists. Like only needing enough space for computer, like editing equipment. Would you consider yourself an object-based artist as well, and just using video as documentation, or like how do those two things like interplay with each other.
I guess at the end of the day, I would consider myself an object-based artist. Like, I'm so into making costumes and I make ceramics for the videos, and then even how I approach editing, like, I approach it more as a collage. I've always actually really loved film, and when I was a kid, I would like daydream about more being a filmmaker. That's just not like where kind of my path took me. And it's almost like I do approach even video just more, like object based.
Took a class at PCM. How was it? Tell me about your HD studio experience.
I really loved it. It was really amazing. Like, it's nuts that there's this amazing TV studio that, like, as an individual, you can have access to. We've talked about this. I mean, I think there's so much potential with having these like really special moments on TV, and like how can you gather people around that, that makes it more community, which is different than the internet because it's like everyone can watch it by themselves in their bedroom,
It's like, it's so funny whenever we bring people in there, they're like, whoa, it's so analog because there's like so many buttons. Like people are always like, why isn't there a touch screen?
The freaking cross dissolve with the joystick.
Yeah.
Like, I was the one that I put a circle, cross dissolve, and then I was like moving it all around. And like Chris would be like, never wear stripes, never wear stripes. And I was like, I'm totally going to make Goddess Talk a total stripe outfit. Totally. So you'd get that over. I was like, that's awesome.
Using the technologies that we have on site in different experimental ways. Yeah. So I'm really interested in the notes that you took from what Chris said, but then to use them intentionally as a form of aesthetic or a different mode of communicating things, like flipping it on its head, like these rules or guidelines,
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's so much you could do with that.
Okay, so you're planning on doing Goddess Talk in the studio. Can you describe Goddess Talk, like how you see it as a show and as an entity?
Yeah, we have all this like really gritty, like stupid footage at this point that I've done a couple of things with. Next step would definitely be like doing it there, and as a show, it'd be very much with like our two characters, Melody and Serenity. We would definitely kind of like talk about all kinds of things, but also interviewing people. As an entity, it's pretty cheeky. I want it to be ridiculous and kind of dumb. I guess like an archetype of the more Western or United States Western white woman who is like super into New Age and spirituality and astrology. But I think as a show, I hope it's like a comedy, and it's also kind of sweet.
Very funny.
Yeah.
And really beautiful too, because like the green screen king is like so amazing in that too.
Yeah, totally. There'll be lots of green screening. And it's also like, it's a safe place for me to do all those things that Chris says don't do, because it fits with the concept. It would be so pretty to have these like striped outfits and everything's going kind of crazy, and then green screen, like a beautiful black and white grid, and then have, I don't know, a Pegasus
How you feel about like the distribution on like TV as opposed to like exhibition or like even like sharing on the internet or something, like on YouTube.
Yeah. I think it's so cool to have it on the TV, and that goes back to like my 8-year-old self of like nostalgia of that. But like at the same time, like people still do have TV. And I love the idea of like someone just switching the channels and seeing something like Goddess Talk and being completely unprepared for it, Like I just love that kind of that reassertion into that media space that's about more like the local and experimentation and like using the media in like funny, inspirational ways instead of like all about capitalism and power and lots of violence. Just inherent in itself is a political act. And I think maybe on the internet that gets lost more. You put a weird art video on there and you're like, there's 1,000 other weird art videos on there. But as a TV, like there's not. And you're just flipping the stations and you're just like, you're on like Fox News or something, and the next you're like, what is this? Like,
it's almost kind of like like an intervention in a way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, totally. You're like,
oh! Which is like, you know, the original intent of cable access too. Yeah, but now it's like in this kind of like post TV age.
Yeah.
Like it becomes beautiful, analog, but also like still highly relevant to like subverting like people with power who are able to broadcast, you know, like Westworld or whatever on TV.
The thing about TV, I don't know what's happened, you know, like where you guys are at with this, but something that we talked about, like you have like the artists in residence you have there, or like special programming, like to do something where you have a gathering even at a bar and like everybody watches it, like an opening. Like I think that is like a super fun, interesting idea to me, and I think that's cool.
In public too, like people don't have TVs anymore, and like we're saying, like the only reason a lot of people claim that they do now is to watch sports. But it's so interesting. It's like almost going to like the movie theater again, only like on a smaller screen.
Yeah.
To share this like tribe experience together, because you're all like gathering around for this like one particular moment in time, this live event.
Yeah.
Even mediated.
Yeah.
By like PBR and like sticky floors.
Oh yeah, I like that, and I have to say, like I love galleries and I love installations, and you know, it's so much fun to get to just like walk into someone's world, basically. You know, but I have to say, like I'm always a fan of like art being taken out of that and seen in different ways, and how can it be more like kind of pop up, right, in all these different daily activities, so it's not so like insular.